Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And this movie is directed by James Mangold, starring Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones once again. And sadly, I thought this was the worst Indiana Jones movie out of all of them. And honestly, the more I think about this movie, the worse it gets for me. It's basically just trying to do all the same things the previous movies have done, but it just doesn't work this time around. But I will say some positives about this movie. It does somewhat of a good job in terms of capturing the spirit of the previous movies. Like you can definitely tell it's an Indiana Jones movie based on the tone and the sequence of events. Like there are things about it that worked, like in concept and also on paper. We'll talk about execution later. And I liked the classroom scene. I thought it established Indiana Jones as a character pretty well at this point in his life. And he just gets to be kind of excited to talk about history. And that was kind of fun. And in terms of action in this movie, there was really only one action scene that I kind of liked. It was the, I guess, bike chase or whatever. Like, that was kind of fun. Although I will say that it was kind of a worse version of the get that greaser scene from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I never thought I would be saying. And the action in this movie works for me when it's practical and not relying on CG, which it does. And sure, the effects in this movie are better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, obviously, because it's newer technology, but at the same time, you can always tell whenever they're using CGI. Like, the first 30 to 40 minutes of this movie felt like it was the climax of another movie just because it went on for so long. And ultimately, it's just to establish the MacGuffin of the movie and to really set up the stakes. And it took forever to do that. And it went on for quite a long time. And none of it was impressive. There were too many close shots. I couldn't really make out the action all too well. And Harrison Ford in that sequence, they used de-aging on him to make him look younger, and I did not think he was going to look like that for such a long time in the film. But they did it, and it doesn't look very convincing. I could always tell that it wasn't young Indy. It looked like CG'd young Indy, and also, even if I could buy that, like just the look of Harrison Ford looking younger, I never once believed that it was a younger Indy because of his voice. He always sounded like current day Harrison Ford and not how he sounded like in the 80s. I didn't really care for the villains of the movie. It's basically just Nazi characters all over again, which is fine and all, but there's just nothing interesting going on with them, and they're given so much screen time, and I just feel as though they were given too much screen time, and this movie is way too long. It's slightly over 2.5 hours long for no reason. There's nothing really about that runtime that is justified, or I felt as though I was given anything to really care about. And here's another big problem that I have with this movie. I didn't care about anything that was going on in this movie. I wasn't interested in where the story was going. The special effects were very noticeable at points. The action wasn't engaging. I didn't really like any of the characters. Like, Indiana Jones, like, there's nothing really left to explore with his character. And he's supposed to be a nice, simple character and all, which is fine. But they give him a goddaughter in this movie, just out of nowhere, and he's trying to protect her because of things that she got into, and the movie definitely tries to have something in this movie to keep you engaged, but there's few things that do work for me. And I'll admit it, there are a couple things that I did like, but those things are very spread out, and there's just not enough of those things that I liked. And this movie just constantly reminded me of better movies that were either better action movies or just the other installments in this franchise that were just much better. Like, even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull I like better than this. Like, by the end of the day, I thought that movie was fine, but There were plenty of elements about that movie that I can remember and stuck with me, whether it be negative or positive, but at least I can remember them aside from what we got from this movie, which is just so forgettable. And even the things that I do remember about it are just not positive things for the most part. There's plenty of comedy in this movie, but none of it landed for me, except for like one joke towards, I guess, once the action scene of the opening is done, we get one kind of funny gag, and that was about it. The side characters in this movie were definitely annoying for me. As the movie progressed, I didn't hate them as much for the same reasons. I will say that I kind of disliked them for different reasons as the movie went along. But I will say they were slightly less annoying as the movie went along. And going back to, I guess, the comedy, more specifically with the tone of the film, the action comedy didn't really flow very well at all. It was pretty bad in this film, honestly, because the action just didn't feel like it needed to be there. And it just felt like a different movie, ultimately. And the adventure part is like the best part of the movie in terms of the tone or genre that this movie is set in. Like, being an adventure is what this movie is best at, I guess. But the action, not very good. The comedy, even worse. Like, not some of the worst jokes I've ever heard in my life, but none of it feels like it needs to be there, and it doesn't complement the film, in my opinion. There were some really bad lines of dialogue in this movie, and also some annoying callbacks in this movie that didn't really need to be there. Like, it just didn't feel natural. I know there were callbacks in Temple of Doom and Last Crusade, and I believe there were plenty in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but in this movie, I don't know what it was about them, but the way it was handled, it just felt like member berries, and I just found it to be really annoying. There were some really annoying conveniences in this movie, and there was a point where the villains of the movie just found Indiana Jones on a ship in the middle of the ocean. I was like, how is that even possible? Because the ocean is huge. Like, even just coincidentally bumping into someone in the ocean is impossible. I don't know. The fact that it was just in the movie at all, it just kind of irritated me. And to top it all off, this was just the most boring Indiana Jones movie. And that's really what makes this movie the worst out of the entire franchise for me, is that it's really boring. There's barely anything to care about, and everything that you would want from this movie is just in the previous movies. And that's about all I have to say about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It was bad. It was boring. I could care less about what was going on in this story. It's way too long. Some really poor action. Some noticeable CG, especially de-aging CG. None of the characters are particularly interesting or likable, especially the ones that are introduced. And that's about all I have to say. So skip this one. You don't need to watch it. It's not worth your time. Watch any of the previous Indiana Jones movies. Watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. Watch Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Because those are all better movies than this. And on top of that, they're all shorter than this one. So with all that being said, I'm going to give Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny a 4 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos. As always, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and my social media links. They will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Cache. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching, and have a great day.